Okay, so some people were asking if I was gonna do sort of a seasonal log the same way I did with Clone Wars when I reviewed that for Disney December with Star Wars Rebels. Everybody wanted me to see Rebels because I did Clone Wars and I really like Clone Wars. And it's only 4 seasons, so I was like, why not? So, like I said, there's not going to be many of these, probably just 4. But, yeah, as I'm watching these through the year for Disney December, I am going to cut it off at each season and say what I thought of each season. So now we have season 1, and I got good news and bad news. The bad news is I really didn't get into season 1. This was not grabbing me, man. I'll go into more detail about that, but first I do want to say very quickly the good news. I started a little bit of season 2. I think I'm 2 episodes in, and it's already a lot better. So all the hate you're about to give me here, just know it's... I already think it's getting better, so I'll get to that a little bit too. But I did want to say my initial thoughts about season 1 here. I think I thought about this what most people think of Clone Wars season 1, because when I saw season 1 of that, it wasn't perfect, but I was into it. I was enjoying it. It had like its awkward moments, but I was still like, man, I'm actually getting much more into this than I did with the prequels. It had some interesting ideas. It threw a lot of story at you and a lot of strategy. They were really treating it like a war, which I thought was really cool. So now we have this spin-off, and the first thing I asked when I started watching this on our streams, our Twitch streams, I said, did Disney buy LucasArts when this came out? And they did, and it really shows. And I'll totally admit, maybe... in fact, probably the reason I did not get into this first season, or just the whole idea of Star Wars Rebels here, is most likely because of Clone Wars. Because I feel like if I never saw Clone Wars, and I only knew Star Wars, the trilogy, and, some of the spin-offs and stuff like that, I'd probably say this is fine. But knowing it's the same people, knowing it's, that it's coming right after Clone Wars, does make me judge it a little harsher, because so much of it is incredibly by the numbers. All these characters seem very, very familiar that I've seen in a million other things, and the acting's not always that fantastic. A lot of them I don't remember that well, with the exception of 1 or 2. I remember the purple dude that's on the team. He's pretty cool. I really like the Inquisitor, but he doesn't last very long. And then the captain grew on me. She wasn't leaving the impression on me before, but then the episode where she escapes with a lunch tray off this ship, and she does it so cool because it's not like a big flashy action sequence or anything. She just uses some clever language, clever maneuvering, and just knocks out 2 guys, just strolls into an escape pod and gets off this ship. And that was so cool. That was so smooth. I was like, okay, she kind of won me over. But the other thing, though, that's kind of neat about her is that she's always a few steps ahead of everybody else, like, a good captain should. But the issue with that is that even though she's a few steps ahead, I feel like she's on the same level as the people watching. Like, we're kind of a few steps ahead of everybody else either, so it's kind of frustrating waiting for everybody else to catch up. The main characters, like I said, just very much seem like very safe standard archetypes. Ezra, I mean, you could just call him Aladdin. As soon as I saw it, they call him a street rat in the first episode. I'm just like, oh, so is this like what Clone Wars did? Well, they'll do something kind of like Wizard of Oz, but it's like they're adding their own spin. Like, oh, it's kind of familiar, but we're going to do something different. Not really, because not that much different is done with it. The Jedi in this that's on the ship, I don't even remember his name, and he's just the most boring Jedi to me. I don't remember a thing about him. He just has the most standard teacher lines. Everyone just has this very, very boring dialogue. The artist that wears the helmet, I think it's cool that there's like kind of a graffiti artist on there and stuff, but A, the graffiti, I think, is very boring, and B, she doesn't have too much of a character to me either. The Empire doesn't seem like that big a risk until Tarkin comes in, the Peter Cushing character. That's his name, right? Tarkin? Sorry if I get that wrong. And it is fascinating seeing how this is now 2 other versions I've seen of that character, Peter Cushing's character, in this and in Clone Wars, and both of them were so much more interesting and intimidating than in Rogue One, which I really thought was fascinating. And he's not even, like, terribly done in there. Again, he's just kind of boring, but that's what's so interesting, that, like, he's the most interesting, one of the most interesting parts here. And every single time there was, like, a rescue mission, like there's a couple episodes, there's something like 2 or 3 episodes where they need to get the Jedi teacher back, and I just remember thinking to myself, man, in Clone Wars, they had to rescue people all the time. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, all 3, like every other episode was a rescue episode. I always wanted them to be saved. I wanted to figure out how they're going to get them out, what's going to happen. This one, I'm just like, oh, just get rid of the dude. I just don't care. And to the show's credit, they're not terrible. They're not annoying. I mean, God, Clone Wars had, like, the Jar Jar episodes and stuff like that. Like it never reached that. So it's one of those things where I can't actively say, man, I'm disliking this. It just never held my interest, and I think one of the big reasons for that is, in comparing it to Clone Wars again, Clone Wars always had, even though they had a lot of hiccups and bumpy moments and awkward moments like that too, and even bad acting in some areas as well, the setup was very different. The setup was always about the strategy, about the technique, about the philosophy, about the psychology, about understanding the enemy, and understanding yourself, and the ways of the Force, and all that. And that was so much more interesting to me that eventually, like, the characters kind of started to fall into place, because early on in the first 2 seasons, especially season 1 of Clone Wars, I don't think the characters were 100% figured out yet. Like I said, they're kind of finding their footing. It was a little awkward, but the stories were always interesting, and the way they got around certain challenges that came their way were always interesting, and what they had to give up, and what they had to add, and what they had to create, what they had to destroy, where was all gonna go. There is kind of this nice grit and bite to it when one of these characters are probably gonna die, or a lot of things are gonna go to the shitter by the end of this, because this is not a prequel to the prequel, but it's in between the prequels, and everything's gonna, the main character's gonna turn into Darth Vader and everything. Where in this one, I guess it's already in a bad place, with the Empire having already taken over, and I'm cool with that, but it doesn't have as much bite to it. We're just kind of doing what Star Wars already does. And maybe that's why I feel a little bad about not liking the show, because I'm thinking to myself, well, this came out around the same time as Star Wars. Like, it'd probably be fine, like, wow, they're really keeping true to, like, the ideas and everything, but it felt like nothing new was added, nothing challenging was being done. So, I apologize, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for it, I just did not get into Season 1. Season 2, the beginning, I'm already liking a lot more, and I'm really wondering if there were, like, people critiquing it or complaints or whatever about it. Because, I mean, I know it's the same people as Clone Wars, and I get the feeling when they're told, hey, like, Disney bought, LucasArts, and they're not going to do Clone Wars, they're going to create a whole other show. Same people, but a whole other show. That's already a lot of people that are probably ready to hate it. And then once they make it, if they have the same problems I do, maybe they don't, maybe they loved it, and maybe my critiques are like, nobody agrees with them at all. But with the start of the second season, I already feel like, man, it's feeling more like Clone Wars again. And it's not that it has to be Clone Wars. That's not the case. Honestly, if you told me, if you told me the setups of each of these, you told me the character setups in Rebels and then the character setups in Clone Wars, I'd probably be like, well, Rebels sounds more interesting. That sounds more character-driven. That sounds more, kind of more traditional, where Clone Wars was already starting from a bad spot with the prequels, where the characters are not that interesting, the story's hard to follow, and the politics are hard to follow, and even the strategies are hard to follow. So I would just be like, well, yeah, Rebels sounds better, but because Clone Wars did such a good job working that into the characters, and they did really feed into each other, to start off with this that's just so safe and so standard, was a little bit of a downgrade, I felt like. But with the beginning of the second season, you bring in these other characters, you bring in Darth Vader. Whoever's doing his voice is a damn good impressionist. Like, I'm listening to, like, is that James Earl Jones? Like, I don't think it is. I don't think they would get him for, this many lines. I think he'd do a cameo as Rogue One, but like, for Rogue One, but yeah, I can't see him doing the show. But whoever they got to replace him is doing a really good job. Like, he has the inflections and everything down really well. And then, like I said, you have Ahsoka in there. And it seems like it's already concentrating more on the strategies, more on the technique, more the philosophy and the psychology, and bringing in these other characters we're familiar with, which I usually don't like if the show is doing a good enough job just being its own thing. And I felt like it wasn't, so it was kind of nice seeing these other characters come in. There's only two things so far that threw me off a little bit. This is really just nitpicky. But I'm wondering if anyone else had the same thought. So Ahsoka now in this is an adult, where when it started off with like the Clone Wars movie, like she was a girl, she was a kid pretty much. And then by the end, like, I don't know, like maybe college age or something, either like 19, 20, early 20s, something like that. Where in this, I mean, she looks like she's late 20s, early 30s, something like that. And you look at like Rosario Dawson playing her right now, again, clearly an adult. And that's cool, and that's two kind of different interpretations. But the voice stayed the same from when she's a girl to when she's a grown-up in this series. And that's a little weird, even though I'm sure the actress playing her when she first did the voice was already grown up, that's fine. But if you're expecting like this, like I said, this kid to have the exact same voice as when she's an adult, like, it's possible, but it feels odd. It seems weird to see just now this very, grown up, mature woman here and stuff like that. Just the exact same voice I remember hearing, like, from the Clone Wars movie, so that's a little weird. And then the other thing, it's sadly about her character too, and so far she's fine. It's just the one thing when she does the thing where she's using the Force to see who's in the TIE Fighter, realizes it's Anakin, Darth Vader, and she passes out. First of all, just that alone, even though I get it, like, oh, it's like the feelings are so strong, or maybe he even did something where, like, he knocked her out with the Force or something, I don't know. Something about her passing out was already a little weird, but then the other thing is just like, you got the captain there flying, what's happened to her? It's like, I don't know, she'll be okay, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and you just see her laying there like, oh, like that, while they're trying to figure out like how to outwit the Empire and the Star Destroyers and stuff, and that just really made me laugh, because it's like, that's Ahsoka. That's like she could take on all this shit, and yeah, she's seeing like her old master, I get it, like it's gonna be like shocking, but to just knock her out and see her laying in someone's arms, that just really made me laugh. But those are nitpicks. I'm already liking this season much, much more, and I'm only 2 episodes in. I feel like that the pacing is getting better. Sort of again, like the connections and the strategies in fighting the war and stuff like that, fighting the Empire are great. I love that. I never thought I'd say this. I really like that Darth Vader is in it so far, because he is adding just so much more of an edge, and Tarkin was adding an edge, and the Inquisitor added this really great edge, but he was kicked out pretty early, it seems like. I know Thrawn is somewhere in there. I'm very excited to see what he does, and everyone's been telling me it gets better. I believe you. I think this was, to me, what like the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars were for a lot of people. I don't hate it, I just did not get into it. There's only like a handful of scenes in the first season where I was like, alright, that's cool, that works, but yeah, it wasn't grabbing me, so I'm already looking forward to where it's gonna go, though, and I'm sure a lot of you already know where it's gonna go, and I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, first season just didn't grab me, man. At the risk of opening the floodgates, what did you think of the first season? Because I hear a lot of people like this show. Awesome, you don't have to have my opinion. But I'm really curious if anyone has, like, the same thoughts I did. Like, was the first season just not grabbing you? Were you thinking back to Clone Wars? Or did you maybe see it as, no, it's good this is something different. It has different kind of characters, a different focus, different pacing, and so forth. Or do you feel like it's on par with Clone Wars? You think, no, like, this is what Clone Wars did. It's doing it great. It's great to, see them doing this all again with these characters and such. I love to know your thoughts. I already believe you when when everybody tells me it gets better. I believe you. Yeah, the first season just didn't grab me, man. So that's season 1. Already started season 2, and I'm already looking forward to it. I'm liking the direction already it's going. So that's about it. I'll see you next time. Take care.